Hey there, Cowboys Nation. I'm Kyle Youmans from the Star in Frisco, bringing you another Cowboys Rewind as we take a look ahead to, of course, the Dallas Cowboys and the New England Patriots. Week 4 of the NFL season is here, but we first must rewind through Week 3 as the Cowboys fall to the Arizona Cardinals 28-16 at State Farm Stadium. And with more on that, let's hear what Jerry Jones had to say with 105.3 The Fan and really his reaction on the Cowboys offense in the loss to the Arizona Cardinals.
Are you happy with the offensive changes and the way it's gone so far?
I want to see more, to use the word happy, but let me be real clear. I think that what we're trying to do is really doable. Number one, we can do it. Certainly we have the personnel to execute on it. We are bringing along by necessity, but we're still bringing them along for whatever the reason they're out there. At least 2, possibly 3 young offensive linemen that are really needed and going to help us as we move on down the road here.
So, Jerry, still with high expectations for the Cowboys offense and the play calling from Mike McCarthy. Moving forward with that West Coast scheme, they'll have a chance, of course, this week against the Patriots to try it out and try and turn things around. But when we come back, we're going to hear from Nick Harris. Those red zone issues have been a problem for the Cowboys in the first 3 weeks. How do they turn it around next on Cowboys Rewind?
Cowboys Rewind is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by SWBC Mortgage. Join the more than 120,000 customers that we've helped to find their happier way home. Visit swbcmortgage.com to find a pro today. This segment is brought to you by Ashley, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back into Cowboys Rewind at the Star in Frisco, taking a look back at the Cowboys and Cardinals in Week 3 of the NFL season. Didn't go to plan, mostly in the red zone for the Cowboys offense. They moved the ball methodically down the field, but they just could not capitalize on great red zone positioning and a couple empty possessions leading to that 28-16 loss. Here's a clip from Talking Cowboys earlier in the week where Nick Harris and Isaiah Stanback debate what's next for the Cowboys' red zone creativity.
I think also what plays into this is they don't have a red zone weapon. CeeDee Lamb is probably your best red zone weapon, and he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not going to out-physical you. You know, he could probably go up and out-jump you and head-top you a little bit, but that's not going to be as reliable as, you know, what Dez has been for this team or what, Witten was for this team or even Ezekiel Elliott all the way up until last year. You know, they don't have a bruiser at tight end that can, you know, go up and just out-physical you. I love what Jake Ferguson has actually done in these first 3 weeks. Let me say that. Like, even yesterday, there were times I was like, man, Ferguson looked good. But they don't have a guy that can just get in there, get his nose dirty, and go get those yards. And I think that's probably the root of this issue, but also just very simplistic play calling that they put out in the open field, trying to do the same thing within close quarters in the red zone. And, you know, when you're running, you know, mesh concepts in the red zone, I just don't feel like that's the best thing to do in the world.
I mentioned this yesterday on the post-game show, but the best weapon in the red zone, right? You talked about the root of the problem. I believe the root of the problem for the Dallas Cowboys in the red zone is the inability to run the ball effectively down there. Because when you're able to run the ball effectively down there, then all of a sudden all the attention gets placed on the run. So then everybody has to respect it. You have to respect it. If I could literally line up and I'm going to say, hey, we're on the 5-yard line, we're about to just run through your face. And we're going to push your entire line and linebackers backwards into the end zone, and we're going to do this every single time we come down here. Now play action becomes prevalent. Now I can do a whole bunch of, you know, different releases and everything else I want to do, right? Misdirection and all the other foolery that you see down in Miami. Like, you could do that because I can line up and literally just run the ball at you all day long if I want to. Dallas doesn't possess that. We were excited about the potential of that because of Tyler Smith coming back this past week. Tyler Smith comes back and you lose 3 other guys.
From the set of Talking Cowboys, now to the set of Cowboys Rewind as we welcome in Nick Harris from DallasCowboys.com. You talked about it there. The red zone efficiency hasn't been great for the Dallas Cowboys through the first 3 weeks of the season, but it was definitely magnified in the loss to Arizona on Sunday. I mean, where does it start when you look at the red zone deficiencies and the way that things have turned out inside the 20?
Yeah, magnified for sure. Tapping into Patrick Walker with his maybe magnifying glass using science. But we talked about whenever we were nitpicking that 40-0 victory, even in week 1 against the Giants, it was the red zone issues that they couldn't quite get into the end zone. It took them 2-3 plays on the goal line to be able to punch it in. And then those problems, as you said, were magnified in week 3 against Arizona and a big catalyst towards the loss. You asked Dak Prescott postgame. He said the red zone issues were the reason for the loss, period. And you have to look at that. 6 for 15 through 3 games and being able to score 6 points and getting inside the 20-yard line. That's 27th in the league with a 40% ratio. So they're definitely going to have to be able to punch it in. How can they do that? I want to see more guys get involved inside the 20. I want to see CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks. You know, this talented group of receivers, they were brought in to help score touchdowns. We want to see that inside the 20.
You mentioned the receivers there for the most part, but do you think any of them can emerge as a red zone potential, red zone target? Because in the clip, you talked about how the lack of a red zone specific player has really hindered this Cowboys team and this Cowboys offense. Do you feel like any of those guys can rise up, or anybody under the radar that could do the same?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say under the radar, but there is a big radar guy that I think could step up, and that's big number 88, CeeDee Lamb. He's the biggest offensive weapon on this team. He's able to dice guys up inside in close range, and that works in the red zone. I want to see him be able to go to the corner and go up high with a guy. His athleticism, it's used between the 20s. Why not use it in close range as well? I think CeeDee Lamb should take it upon himself to get more active in the red zone.
So no wide receiver touchdowns to this point. I mean, that's the biggest thing I think that's missing from this Cowboys offense. So I certainly agree with you there. They've used the tight ends a little bit. 2 touchdowns, 1 to Luke Schoonmaker, 1 to Jake Ferguson. Do you think any of those guys, along with your guy Hunter Lipke as well, I know you love the fullback and what he's done so far, but do you think any of those guys could step up and fill that red zone void?
Yeah, I think the tight end group as a whole, there is still work to be made. There's progress there to be made. It's a young group. It was the youngest position group coming into this season, and tight ends coach Lunda Wells has talked about it a ton, being able to get those guys more involved. I want to see them get more involved in the red zone as well. Jake Ferguson, he's had a strong start to the season. It was a little bit of an upsetting first game for him. He had a couple of drops in the bad weather up there in New York, but since then, he's been able to show sure hands, and he's fighting off tackles at his legs. I want to see him get more active in the red zone for sure. And then Luke Schoonmaker, as he gets more comfortable in this offense, as he feels out his rookie year a little bit more, I want to see him get some red zone targets too.
You can catch Nick Harris on Talking Cowboys, 9 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday, and you can catch his work all week long on DallasCowboys.com. Appreciate you joining us, Nick. But when we come back, we hear from Nick Eatman and Danny McCray. Not only did the two make a bet on the LSU-Arkansas game, but they talk about some of that decision-making from Mike McCarthy in the red zone and how it affected the Cowboys against the Cardinals.
This segment was brought to you by Ashley, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back into the Star in Frisco. I'm your host, Kyle Youmans. As we take a look at Cowboys storyline this week, Nick Eatman had his guest, former Cowboy Danny McCray, talk about not only the LSU and Arkansas bet that those two made as proud fans of each program, but also the play calling that Mike McCarthy had and some of the decisions in the red zone that led to some of the lapses against the Cardinals.
All right, so I lost. Arkansas lost the game. Danny, they won. LSU got the win.
Yeah.
Good for y'all. Anyways, Cowboys, Cardinals.
Yeah.
You're on the show, Players Lounge. What's the sentiment like? I mean, what's going on here with in your mind with the Cowboys and how they lost that game, and is the sky falling, all that stuff?
I don't think the sky is falling. I think, I was very high on Big Mike this year, Mike McCarthy calling plays,
Big Mike,
and him saying that, hey, I'm going to make sure I play to my defense. And I think the first 2 games you saw us get out into the red zone, and instead of worrying about what everybody else said about how our red zone, how we were performing in the red zone, we kicked the field goals. Mm-hmm. We got out of there. And I'm watching the game, and I'm like, okay, Big Mike is going to kick this field goal no matter what's happening to us on defense, and he's going to trust that we're going to be able to make a play. And he goes for it on 4th.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, this ain't the same as the first two games.
Why do you think it was a lack of trust, or do you think you just the feel in the game?
I think as you go into the first two games and you don't perform very well in the red zone. Well, when you compare it to how many touchdowns versus how many field goals you're scoring. But for me, it's you ending the drive with a kick, you're getting points, and you're letting your defense go out there and do what they do.
Right.
Previous two games, we had kicked a lot of field goals. We weren't scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And what were people saying once you got out of those games? Man, we turn those into touchdowns. Like, that's going to be that much better for us as we go through the season.
Right.
And we didn't do it. So I think when we got into the red zone this game, it's like, you know what? I got to score a touchdown in the red zone.
Yeah.
And we went for it on fourth down, and it changed the whole dynamic of how we had been playing that first 2 weeks.
And it wasn't just the fact that you didn't score, but you let them get, 35 yards out of it. I mean, there's one thing if you can just go 3 and out and they punt, you're probably going to be back down there again. But they got a big play out of it, and you're right. It kind of changed the whole momentum. It was kind of like, all right, the Cardinals were like, we can take their best shot.
Well, how many times we throw the ball?
Right.
It changed the way we played the entire game. And I know, like, they were driving the ball on us on defense, but that's first half. Second half, we came out and we played better. But I think we had an opportunity to say, all right, listen, we got a whole second half. We're going to get these 3 points, and we're going to stick to the plan that we've been doing for the first 2 games. And I think it changed for some reason when we went for it on fourth down, and I think it was just different. It was just different. So I don't think the sky's falling. I think we'll get back to what we were doing because we saw that it didn't work, and I think we'll be okay. It won't be as easy as I thought it was going to be, though.
Yeah, and I think that's the same with a lot of fans right now. All right.
So you heard it there from Cowboys storyline. I think you look good in purple, Nick Eatman.
Stop
I think
it.
it looks good. No, you don't like it?
I don't look good in purple.
Yeah, no shade of purple, really.
And I said that to Danny McCray. They don't even wear their own purple jerseys. They don't even like their own purple. So why are you putting me in the purple?
Yeah, proud Arkansas Razorback right here. And I guarantee you, it might have looked like he was having fun on storyline, but when he had the LSU shirt on, it was not that funny. It was
not at all.
But Danny McCray wins the bet. Arkansas, hey, they had a shot. They really did. But I want to talk about the Cowboys and the Cardinals here. I want to talk about some of the decision-making there from Mike McCarthy. Danny McCray went into that as really the number one moment in that game where it shifted the entire thinking. It was the going for it on fourth down instead of taking the field goal inside the 10-yard line. Did you agree with the call, and did you think it had as big of an impact as Danny McCray did?
Yeah, I did not agree with the call at the time. You felt like they were just starting to inch back into this game, get closer and closer. And 4th and 3, I was like, go for the field goal. That's kind of what I thought at the time. But I think what McCarthy was trying to figure out is that if you don't get it there, your defense is playing pretty well. You're going to stop them. You're going to get the ball back close to midfield and then go do it again. The big part wasn't just missing it. It was the fact that Arizona was throwing out of their own end zone, had like a 35-yard pass to Marquise Brown. That gave them a lot of breathing room, and that flipped the field position a little bit. I think it was the play that happened afterwards that was bigger than actually not getting it on fourth down.
Yeah, I think when that play happened, at least at point, like you said, you thought that the defense would step up and make a stop. Defensively for the Cowboys, can they rely on them still to keep them in games or to even win them games at times with what you saw in week 3?
Well, I think you have to rely on them, but it has to be a team balance. It has to be complementary football, special teams as well. And so I think if they can get both of that, you expect your defense to play better than they did and not give up so many rushing yards. You expect the offense to score some there in the red zone. So they all have to be better. It's not just one or the other. It all has to be better. Remember, Mike McCarthy was pushing all the right buttons the week before against the Jets, going for it on fourth down, deferring, getting the ball, going to score, things like that. But it didn't work the same way in Arizona. So let's see what happens this week against New England.
Do you want to see a conservative play call from Mike McCarthy this week against the Patriots, or you want to see the aggression continue, or even Dan Quinn-wise as well, just play calling across the board?
I think I'm still kind of somewhat a conservative, especially it depends on who you're playing against. If you're going up against an offense that you know is going to score a lot of points, maybe you have to open it up a little bit. In this case, I don't think New England is going to score a ton of points. I think they still have to be smart, but I would love for them to score some red zone touchdowns and to a wide receiver so we can kind of end that narrative that's been talked about in the last few games.
Well, yeah, that's fair too. What would a good, successful day for the Dallas defense look like on Sunday against New England?
I think it's less than 20 points. It's getting some turnovers, some sacks, showing that you don't miss Trayvon Bland as much as it kind of looked like. Trayvon Diggs in that game. You have Deron Bland step up and play a little bit better than he has. So I think it's just getting turnovers, getting other guys on the opposite side of Micah Parsons to kind of get after the quarterback, and letting them kind of get after the ball.
I think you would want to see Trayvon Bland. You want to see him play
Yeah.
like Trayvon,
Yeah,
but have him as
if you
Deron
could
Bland.
combine the two, maybe that's what I'm trying to do mentally. But,
I think it would work out. I really do. Nick Eatman joining us from Cowboys Storyline. You can catch him Monday through Friday on that show, 10 a.m. Central Time. You can also call in, be a part of the show.
Yeah.
That's what you love on Cowboys Storyline. We'll be back with more Cowboys Rewind. Patrick No-C Walker joins the show next. Ezekiel Elliott and the New England Patriots come to AT&T Stadium here in Week 4. Let's hear from CeeDee Lamb on the emotions of welcoming in their former tailback.
What do you think Zeke's mentality will be in this game, given how close he's been to you guys?
Definitely a prove-it game. For him, it's sitting a lot, on his shoulders. Obviously, this is the team that he got drafted to and built all the relationships and friendships and bonds. His best friend is, on the quarterback for us. So, there's going to be a lot of emotions going on. So, I'm excited to see it.
You mentioned Dak and Zeke being best friends. From your memories of seeing them, what stood out about how close they were and how rare is that?
Just how they're always together. It's an unbreakable bond, and you can see it from day one. I've noticed it. You notice it on TV. You see it on TV. They're always attached to each other, working hard. Whether it's workouts, hanging out, or in the locker room just talking trash. So they always got each other's back. I know it's going to be a very emotional one for Dak also. But Zeke, I'm definitely happy for him. Happy to see him still, being able to be an impactful player in this league. And like I said, hopefully we come out with the win. But yeah.
CeeDee Lamb talking about the emotions that are very high this week with the homecoming of Ezekiel Elliott, making his way back to AT&T Stadium after he was, of course, drafted with the Cowboys in 2016 and then released in 2022. From the Break podcast, we now welcome in Patrick No-C Walker of DallasCowboys.com. Patrick, the emotion certainly high. You could hear it from CeeDee Lamb. He was referencing Dak Prescott there at the end. They still remain close with Ezekiel Elliott. How do you put those emotions aside?
Well, you got to start by remembering business is business, and you've got to take care of business against the New England Patriots. Coming off of such a messy loss in Arizona against the Cardinals, rule number one this week is bounce back and bounce back strong. Send that message. So, yes, there will be emotions on both sides of the field when you talk about Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and just what Ezekiel Elliott still means to the organization and the locker room. But Ezekiel Elliott and Will Grier are arguably only the two guys on that side of the ball with the Patriots who care. So, for the Cowboys, you better get out there and you got to handle your business. Channel your emotions forward.
Yeah, of course, Zeke coming back. That doesn't present a whole lot because he wasn't in training camp this year for the Cowboys. There was, of course, some jokes thrown out there amongst Cowboys Nation that Will Grier was being interrogated by Bill Belichick whenever he was picked up onto that active roster to back up Mac Jones. But let's talk about Zeke specifically in the run game. It's not just him that's going to tote the rock. Ramondre Stevenson does bring an added element to that offense as well. What kind of impact do you see Ezekiel Elliott having in this matchup?
Well, if you look at what Ezekiel Elliott did last week for the New England Patriots, his role in that offense is starting to ramp up. 16 carries for 80 yards, his best game of the season for the Patriots. And this is a Cowboys defense that's coming off of a game in which they allowed 222 rushing yards on the ground. Do I expect that to happen again in week 4? Absolutely not. But I do expect an emotionally charged Ezekiel Elliott to have a little bit extra oomph than he might have with another team if it weren't the Cowboys. So I do expect Ezekiel Elliott to be that downhill guy, challenge the Cowboys, Jonathan Hankins, Mozzie Smith, that interior, whereas Ramondre Stevenson, he's going to be the guy that attacks the edges.
Yeah, the Cowboys giving up 222 yards on the ground last week, and then Ezekiel Elliott comes back to AT&T Stadium, new haircut, new number, new team. He's going to be charged up.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, you cannot. We've had it circled since he was picked up by the Patriots. Week 4, Well, we're here. Week 4 is coming up. Patrick No C. Walker from The Break and DallasCowboys.com. You can catch his work all week long on DallasCowboys.com. But when we come back here on Cowboys Rewind, what will it look like? Again, there have been some weird matchups with the Patriots and the Cowboys recently. How does this one stack up and compare to the rest? Wrapping up things here on Cowboys Rewind in Week 4 of the NFL season. The Cowboys and Patriots slated for a 3:25 kickoff this week, and it's the third time in 5 years these two teams have faced each other. Let's go back to 2019. 13-9 was the final score. It was a rainy, sloppy game in New England, won by the Patriots. Then the Cowboys got revenge 2 years later, 2021. An overtime win that included a walk-off touchdown from CeeDee Lamb, who also had 149 yards, a career high at that point in the matchup. The Cowboys will look for some more of that success this Sunday to try and get back to 3-1 and back in the win column. That's it for Cowboys Rewind. We'll see you next week. For the Cowboys Media Crew, I'm Kyle Youmans.
Cowboys Rewind was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by SWBC Mortgage. Join the more than 120,000 customers that we've helped to find their happier way home. Visit SWBCmortgage.com to find a pro today.